investigative and judicial bodies to prosecute culprits without interference, because the investigative section of the high levels of corruption and the prosecution processes have really not been working. And so if we are to address the corruption, then these independent commissions in charge of addressing it, like EACC, should have the autonomy and the mandate to do actual prosecutions.
Just allow me to be a coalition of diverse forces working on political, economic, ecological, and gender rights. I will be reading a press statement which is a response to President Ruto's State of the Nation address, which was delivered a few days ago. And in reading the statement, I'll be joined by my comrades, Ruth Mondi and Comrade Nyagotie. We'll read the statement together and we'll then take questions after that. We'll also give opportunity to our comrades from the other progressive organizations who have joined us here, from the Communist Party Marxist, from the Revolutionary Socialist League, and other progressive organizations, so that we can add their voice to these issues of national importance. And so, as I mentioned, President Ruto a few days ago gave his State of the Nation address. While it was full of rhetoric, it failed in a fundamental way to address the fundamental questions affecting this country. And so what we as Kongamano la Mapinduzi have done is to identify 5 issues, only 5. We know we have millions of issues to tackle in this country, but we have identified only 5 issues and offered 3-pronged solutions to each of those 5 issues, because what is being suggested by the system and by the structures of governance and those who lead those structures are not workable solutions. And so on this 15th day of December 2024, this is our statement of this day. Kongamano la Mapinduzi acknowledges the recent State of the Nation Address 2024 by President William Ruto. While the address sought to portray an optimistic trajectory for Kenya, it glaringly ignored the lived realities and material conditions under which millions of Kenyans live. This government's 2-year tenure has been marked by policies that have exacerbated economic inequality, that have deepened corruption, and that have most fundamentally stifled democratic space. Kongamano la Mapinduzi stands firm in calling out these inadequacies while proposing people-centered solutions on 5 main issues, which are economic mismanagement and the related high cost of living, lack of genuine commitment to governance and accountability by this anti-people regime, education reforms, which, as we have seen, have left the poor behind and are trying to turn education into a commodity which only the rich can afford, the failure to address the glaringly high levels of youth unemployment, and lastly, the attack on our food, and so which is basically agriculture and food security. On economic mismanagement, the Kenya Kwanza's administration's economic policies, particularly under the guise of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, have fallen short of delivering meaningful relief to Kenyans. Despite claims of decreased inflation, despite claims of stabilization of our currency, we all know and we all bear witness to the fact that millions of households continue to struggle with skyrocketing food prices, continue to struggle with exorbitant fuel costs, including in the transport industry, and most significantly, unaffordable housing, unaffordable food. The cost of living in this country is simply out of reach for the majority of the people. The 2024 Finance Bill, which was passed by Parliament despite overwhelming public opposition, only served to worsen the plight of Kenyans by imposing punitive taxes. Yes, it was withdrawn after it was passed. President Ruto withdrew it, but we are aware that Parliament has been passing it in piecemeal form through the back door. And so if we have a totality of the different pieces of legislation being passed through Parliament, we discover that it is the Finance Bill being brought back through other means.
And as we know, there's the saying, no matter how long a frog stays in water, it cannot turn into a crocodile. And it is the same parliamentarians who passed the initial bill who are today passing it in another form. This administration's reliance on fiscal austerity while ignoring widespread corruption, evidenced by scandals such as the fake fertilizer debacle, exposes a government that prioritizes elite interests over the needs of ordinary citizens, and which is every day trying to privatize strategic sectors of our economy. Our three-pronged solution to the economic mismanagement is as follows. 1, repeal the punitive tax measures and implement
schemes and reliance to the Hustler Fund as a solution to the unemployment fail to address the structural challenges of youth joblessness. These initiatives benefit a select few, leaving the majority without opportunities for meaningful livelihoods. Our solutions as Kongamano la Mageuzi is 1, invest in local job creation through public works program, manufacturing, and sustainable agriculture. 2, provide interest-free capital and technical support to youth entrepreneurs. 3, expand digital infrastructure and training programs to empower youth in the global digital economy. Pillar number 5 that we identified is agriculture and food security, rhetoric versus the reality. While President Ruto highlighted gains in agricultural production, millions of peasant farmers remain marginalized due to poor access to affordable inputs and exploitative markets. The government's focus on large-scale interventions ignores the plight of peasant farmers. So, what are our solutions as Kongamano? Subsidize agricultural inputs for small-scale farmers to enhance productivity. Strengthen farmer cooperatives to protect against exploitative middlemen and ensure fair market prices. Diversify agricultural investment to include climate-resilient crops and sustainable farming practices. Our call to action. Kongamano la Mageuzi reaffirms its commitment to championing transformative, people-driven agenda as we convene our 2024 Congress on December 15 in Nairobi. We will ratify resolutions aimed at holding this government accountable and amplifying the voices of ordinary Kenyans through initiatives like Bunge Must Go campaign. We will demand a leadership that prioritizes the needs of the people over the interests of the political elite. We call on all Kenyans from all walks of life to join us in this transformative journey. Together, we can build a Kenya grounded in equity, justice, and accountability. Signed by the Central Committee, Kongamano la Mapinduzi.
Number 2, lack of genuine commitment to governance and accountability. President Ruto's rhetoric on democracy and accountability rings hollow in the face of ongoing extrajudicial disappearances, police brutality during peaceful protests, and lack of transparency in public spending. The government's failure to pass critical legislation, like the Conflict of Interest Bill, further underscores its lack of will to address governance failures. The solutions Kongamano la Mapinduzi is proposing are 1, to strengthen accountability by enacting long-pending legislation like the Conflict of Interest Bill and e-procurement systems. Number 2, ensure justice for victims of police brutality and enforce disappearances by reforming the security sector and holding offenders accountable. Number 3, restore public participation and strengthen constitutional mechanisms for civic engagement. On the third issue of education reforms that leave the poor behind, While the administration touts its reforms in education, including the competency-based curriculum, CBC, and increased funding for higher education, these initiatives remain inaccessible to marginalized communities due to poor implementation and high costs. The proposed solutions are: 1. Fully fund public education and abolish school-related levies that hinder access to education for vulnerable children. 2. Expand teacher recruitment to address shortages and improve the quality of education in underserved regions. 3. Establish a participatory review of the CBC to align it with Kenya's socioeconomic realities.
The number 4 is failure to address the youth and
done all this mess to where we are right now. And I don't feel you're speaking so much about the ABC and the injustices that it has caused us. It has caused us a lot of pain, from the era of our parents to us. We have people who are saying they're not going to vote anymore. And it will be a problem to us. As much as we want to change, we need their support. We need the elders to be on our side. For us to change this nation, we have to put all generations together.